Hi, and welcome to Dark Window. I'm your host, Jim Mann. Here on this program, I will be talking with many of the leading investigators, researchers, and authors on the topics of UFOs, UAPs, alien abductions, extraterrestrials, and a host of many other fascinating and related topics. So please join me and my guest for the next hour as we reach out. This is Dark Window on KGRA Digital Broadcasting. Hello, everyone. I'm Jim Mann. Welcome to Dark Window. My guest tonight is Thom Reed. Now, a UFO incident occurred on the night of September 1st, 1969 in Berkshire County, Massachusetts. It was Labor Day, and more than 250 people reported witnessing the UFO. The incident has been deemed a significantly historic and true event by the Great Barrington Historical Society and Massachusetts historians. My guest tonight, Thom Reed, is one of 4 Reed family members involved in a historic UFO case beginning in the early 1960s, leading up to 1969, when Thom, his younger brother, his mother, and grandmother were all taken aboard by what was described as a huge, brilliant, floating light the size of a small strip mall over the entire county countryside of Sheffield, Massachusetts. This experience has had life-altering consequences not only for the Reed family, but for the entire town of Sheffield, Massachusetts, and consequently the entire nation. This historic UFO was assigned with a classification of a close encounters 4, a CE4. Now, that's real similar to a CE3, but a CE4 is what this classification was. And please look that up. The case has many levels and is deeply intertwined and remains one of the few CE4 cases to be mentioned within the walls of the United Nations. Thom Reed was inducted into state of Massachusetts antiquity on November 3rd, 2015, by state historians and the Office of the Governor. The Thom Reed UFO incident became our nation's first UFO incident to be officially inducted into the United States as historically significant and true. This type of UFO event, or induction event, adorned the front page of the Boston Globe and made ABC News in New York. Today, there is a Thom Reed UFO monument park that sets in his honor and is located in Sheffield, Massachusetts. And welcome my guest, Thom Reed. How you doing tonight, Thom?
Hey, Jim. Thanks for having me, buddy. It's been a long time.
Yeah, I'm sorry I kind of fluttered up that introduction.
Okay, it was nice to finally hear it. I don't know who wrote it, but
I didn't have my glasses on. I don't know why.
No, it's fine, buddy.
Thom, it's good to see you again, and you and I have known each other for a number of years.
Yeah.
Gosh, we met way back in 2000 and 9, 10, something like that.
A while ago.
So to get this conversation rolling, this is one of the most interesting, one of the most documented events in the country.
Sure. I think so too.
The town of Sheffield, Massachusetts. Tell me a little bit about this town.
It's a small town. They didn't have a middle school when I was there. We had the only diner, the only eatery at the time in the town. And we went from at 5th grade, you went to high school. And to give you an idea, a lot of there was an issue with school buses because there weren't that many kids there, and it was a lot of farmland, and homes were spread all over. So the bus used to go to certain corners to pick up kids, right? So after a while, most of the parents would just drop their children off at our diner, and my mom would run a tab, and they would eat pancakes or whatever they wanted for breakfast, and we'd all ride our little banana seat bikes together across the street to school.
So that's the diner right there.
I mean, that's how small the area was.
So this is just little hometown Massachusetts here in America. And
it wasn't. It's a well-to-do town,
okay.
But it's farmers. It's agriculture. The largest dairy farm in New England is based there, and one of the women from Desperate Housewives or whatever what is lives there, and
Seriously.
it's an upscale area. It's just rural, but it's only about 3 or 4 miles from the New York line, and about 3 miles to Connecticut, and about an hour and 40 minutes outside Manhattan. So we used to jump on the train, and for like $5.12, we would take the train to Greenwich Village. We'd get off at Port Authority or whatever, and hang out in the village as kids.
So a UFO event must have really rocked the boat there in Sheffield.
Yeah, and it did for a number of different reasons. Now, first of all, there's always this part of our case or the details that get overlooked, which mean everything. So the diner that my family owned and those who talked about the sightings were one of the same. It's just like if you're talking to Jesus Christ in aisle 5 at Walmart, chances are there's going to be an incident. And if you talked about the UFO activity outside our diner, people could get fired because one of the larger employers was Sprague Electric, who made the goodwill message that was left on the moon. Those engineers worked in worked in the area and ate in our diner, and knew my mother. Also, General Electric, Command Aerospace, Pratt and Whitney, Sikorsky. NASA was only an hour and a half away. NASA used to be based in Boston, across from MIT. So the government money to beat Russia to space was given to NASA. NASA employed a lot of the government manufacturing facilities in and around our diner. And what makes this really interesting is that we had the second largest horse track to Saratoga just down the road from my family's diner. So if you came in from Albany, Manhattan, Hartford to work at Sprague Electric back in the 60s most of them were capacitors and things of that nature, they're the ones who had the money to go to the horse track. And being that our diner was basically across the street from the horse track, those people who worked on the space race ate at our diner. And so a lot of the talk of the sightings, certainly the one of 1969, took place in our diner, along with the chief of police, who was on Unsolved Mysteries, his son, and a lot of other people. That's why our diner became so historically significant.
Wow, that's really something. And I see that there was a park.
Uh-huh.
Tell us about this park a little bit.
Well, so that park, the Thom Reed UFO Monument Park, I'm wearing a hat, that came about because our case was taken before the United Nations by attorney Robert Bletchman, who was a colleague of my father's. And at the time, in 1992, he was also the public relations director for MUFON. And we didn't know anything about MUFON at the time, of course, but because my father was an attorney and a politician, and our case had this paper trail and these radio archives and this tie to the space race and so on and so forth, Robert Bletchman was, gracious enough to invite my father to talk about this at the United Nations in support of General Assembly 33426. By the way, Stanton Friedman was there, Linda Morton Howell was there, and the one who put this together, along with Robert Bletchman, our family's personal attorney, was Mohammed Rabidin, who was the president of the Parapsychology Society for the UN. And so our case went in support of the Hudson River Valley sightings, because that was also over a body of water, a river, just like ours was. Ours was over the Housatonic. That was over the Hudson. And so there were, obviously have to ask the questions, right? Is there a connection between the two? Because the UFO of 1969 on September 1st followed the waterway. And so that was mentioned. Our case was mentioned in support of. It wasn't a front runner. It was only in support of the Hudson River Valley sightings. And because of the anomalies around our vehicle, that went in support of Cash and Landerman. And that was on October 2nd, 1992. My father lost his life on October 2nd also.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
And because he died on the same anniversary of that date, because he was a politician in an office, a lot of the local, historians and those kids that rode those banana seat bikes that used to eat in our diner that worked at Sprague, and those families all got together to say, well, maybe we can do something for him. So it started out as like a little something to pay forward to my late father. And then that marker, became, a historical landmark. And then that historical landmark started getting sponsorships from TV shows and friends like Travis Walton and Ben Hansen and, Mike Barra and Ancient Aliens and the daughter of B.B. King sponsors the park, along with the family of Steve Ray Vaughan, who I used to know the Vaughan family from the 80s.
Serious.
Tyrone Vaughan actually is going to be zooming into my event as is B.B. King's daughter Rita, who lives.
I want to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so it became like this. That's the area where it happened, and it just started as a marker, as something to pay forward to my father. As a way to honor him in some respects. And now it's a park.
Do we have that picture there, Patricia, of the covered bridge in the park? And yeah, and it's right there over the river. What's the name of that river again?
Well, that's the Housatonic. It actually is it's one of the most polluted waterways in America.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah, it's pretty bad. Matter of fact, the corn where their incident took place grows 15 to 17 feet tall. The corn is as long as your arm. And we don't know if that has to do with the incident itself. You see that area in the back that's all, that's an older picture. But if you see the area in the back that's all cut down,
right,
that's where the UFO was that night.
Do they still use that bridge? Do you still drive over that bridge?
No, they closed it down. See, that's where the whole incident, the whole issue involving the monument, if you will. When the town put it there, Thom Reed put it there. I didn't put it there. I live 1,000 miles away, right? I didn't have anything to do with put it there. So when they put the town hired Eddie Lord, who was basically part of the Department of Public Works or something. He put the monument there with a forklift, and that was okayed by the town of Sheffield. But then certain people didn't like the idea, didn't like the topic, thought it would, negatively impact the fact that that's like the oldest bridge in New England, although it is a replica,
mm-hmm.
and that it sat in a way that it was too close to the rite of passage. Right, it infringed was the word they used on the rite of passage, and so the town took it away. And when they took the marker or the monument, if you will, which was basically that it was originally that marker was to pay tribute to my late father, which now had the governor's seal on it. When they took it, we had just filmed with Ancient Aliens, and so leaving, Prometheus or the film crew and so on. Said, well, that's unfortunate they did that. Here's a check. Let's help you get a marker back. And so they actually paid for the new marker, which is like a circle. So they paid for that.
They don't use the bridge now, so there must be another bridge there or something.
No, there isn't. They just
so you don't go across the river at that point.
No, it's like you got to go like 3 or 4 miles down the road.
Okay, I didn't catch that.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. How old were you at this time?
I was almost 10.
Can you tell us a little bit about this incident? What happened? What did they what happened to you guys?
All right. So this is and now you're going to understand why I have this I have a tough time labeling what happened. So I'm going to explain it. Maybe you can tell me what happened. All right. So
go ahead.
That day, September 1st. Okay. Yeah, let's do it. So that September night was unseasonably hot. It was like 90 during the day. At evening, it was still blistering hot. I was riding in a horse show for 4-H. And my mother had gone back to the diner to lock it up for the next morning. And because it was a holiday, she had the cook keep it open later, for business. And so we got back to the diner. She put the chairs back up, locked it all up, made the night deposit box, dropped, and we headed over the bridge, which was a shortcut. And because it was running a little bit late for our bedtime, she took the shortcut. Otherwise, you had to go all the way down the highway, turn around, come back, backtrack, just go over the bridge. Now, that road, even today, is a one-lane road, dirt road. You're only going like, potholes, everything else. It's not any better than it used to be. It used to be for horse and buggy and emergency vehicles. That's all it was for. So we were taking the, a lot of people didn't even know it was there. You know what I mean? Unless you lived in town, you didn't even know it was there. So we're going across the bridge, and my grandmother noticed, and she mentioned this later, not at the time, that there seemed to be a bleed of light coming through the floorboards, right? And as we came out the other side, my grandmother, turns around and, looks at me because I'm giving my brother a little fireball. These the weirdest things you remember, right? Because I used to love those things, right?
Yeah.
She goes, "Don't give that to him. He could choke." And when she did, she saw this large white sphere that looked like a, kind of like a cue ball from a pool table. It wasn't like putting out a bleed of light. It was not really a bubble. It was a solid object with a tight lip around it. I mean, it was defined, putting out a little bit of a glow, and it rose about the 3 stories from the banks of the river. I've never said it came out of the river. Some people said it came, when I saw it, it was rising from the river. I don't know where it came from. So it was rising from the water. We kept going, only 5 or 10 miles an hour best, bumpy road, the whole bit, and it rose up along the side of our car and started going forward. At that time, my brother happened to be looking around. He's trying to look around me because I'm in the way of the window, and he notices like an orange one down near the bank where it turns, where the river turns, right? I don't know, you don't quite have that part, but on the right side of it, it also turns. And that one was much smaller, much closer to the water, and it was turning like a wave. Something was moving inside of it. So that was at maybe, 3 o'clock.
Excuse me a minute. Patricia, put that picture back up there with the covered bridge. So you guys which direction were you going there?
Left to right.
Okay. So you were coming in toward the memorial is over there on the right side.
Right. I know it's an older picture because the park's not there yet.
Yeah. But the trees were all, this is pretty much what it looked like back then.
No, not really. It's more overgrown now. But at the same time, though, where you have the snapshot you have is very workable. So if you see on top, I would say, but it's behind the bridge itself. Yeah, that's the new bridge. That's not the old one. Where that water takes a left turn, it's almost like an S.
There's like an S, yeah.
All right, right back where that piece on the left shoots out and it goes to the right. That's where the white sphere came from. So our car would have been coming out the bottom of that bridge right there. It rose up and it started going to the right. And where that, that's a cornfield now that's all cut down.
Right.
It went behind this line of trees near the cornfield. So once it started moving, we didn't see it anymore. We never saw it again. And so with that, we're driving down from where that bridge is. We're going to the right. And when we got down, maybe I would say probably almost to the end of where you can see the cut down area that's getting ready to be seeded, right?
Right.
We stopped right about there. There's actually a telephone pole there, and there was an area for my mom to pull off to the side of the road. She parked there. Now the lights were on, the car was running, my mother was driving, my grandmother was in the passenger seat, my brother was to the back side of me in the back, and I was on the left behind my mother who was driving. So we were looking out the window now that we had pulled over because at one point my mother's like, well, maybe we can see this white sphere again. Now, keep in mind, a lot of people say, why did you act that way? Well, this was not the first time we had seen something in the area. It was a very active area. Matter of fact, I've got the original article from 1967 that was run in the paper involving, the sphere, the round sphere. Right. I don't know if you saw that or not, but it was rerun in the papers. They found the old archive and reran it. So with that, we're parked now. We had seen the orange sphere here, the white sphere here. So we had split them. And then when we stopped, we were looking for the white sphere. A weird feeling had come over us. My mother says it was like a tight She mentioned that on Unsolved Mysteries. It was like a tightly feeling. I just remember feeling like I went deep into a swimming pool. You know, like your head almost pops, but everything's quiet. And then there was this tapping sound, like a ting, 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 which as a child reminded me of stones hitting underneath the fender wall of our back right tire. It was ting, 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 ting. And yet everything seemed, I used to go swimming a lot as a kid. And that's the way it felt to me. Like, you know, like you dive into a pool, it's like boom, right? You
Right.
know,
Yeah.
it's
Just everything
kinda,
kind of goes muffled.
but those little tapping sounds echo terribly. That's what it was like for me. And so at the same time, we're looking out at in the area thinking we're going to see this white sphere, and we never saw it again. But what we did see was this disc that looked like a turtle shell. The side of it had lines on it like a snake skin or a tire. And it, you know, I said it gave off a light, not like a bleed light, but like the shell itself emitted a light, but only on the front side of it. It wasn't on both sides. I don't remember it being on the back side. I remember like an orange or reddish or amber glow to the top right part of it, which made out, which you could make out the shell. Maybe it bled a little bit, but you could see. And my mom's looking at it. My grandmother's all looking at it. We're like fixated on the friggin' thing. Then all of a sudden there was this boom, like a flash of light. Everything had gone quiet there for a while. Then boom, the light went out. Everything erupted. Everything came back to normal. You could hear frogs, katydids, crickets. So it was like someone just flipped the switch off on life itself and flipped it back on. I mean, that's what it was like. It was like boom, quiet, the tapping sound. We're seeing something. We feel like we're alert, but were we? I don't know what was happening. Maybe there was communication between the three because we were in the middle of these three objects. I don't know. Maybe our neurons were messed up from what was happening. There was government everywhere. People saw government coming out of the woods in jeeps and radios on their hips. The magnesium that was mined for the atom bomb was mined 3 miles from our diner. There was a spill. There was a nuclear waste spill.
Really?
Yeah, back in the day in Canaan, where the mine is, back in the 40s and 50s, there was government there as well. So we were surrounded by government, you know.
How far out of town, Thom? Are you guys out of town? Are you?
Well, we're a mile.
You're a mile out of town.
Yeah.
So if this event
I
happened,
wouldn't say a mile out of town. I would say a half mile out of town.
half mile out of town, because now a lot of people from the town saw this light, not just you guys.
There was over 250 people, witnesses. It went out on WSBS radio. There were a judge, Kevin Titus. He was a kid back in the day. Saw the cattle mutilations, which nobody talks about.
Oh, really? Now, see that
was cut out of Unsolved Mysteries, as was Kevin Titus.
I was going to ask you about Unsolved Mysteries. Yes.
Matter of fact, Kevin Titus, if you look at those documents, the judge, he's the one who sealed the government the documents for the state because he knew it. He was there. So back to what happened that night, right? So This is where it gets difficult and why I say there was a human element involved. It obviously was off-world, but there was also something more going on here because what I remember and where I was much bigger than the craft we saw. That's why I say we weren't on a craft. When I came to, I was in a room that was huge. It was like an airplane hangar. And I remember sliding off whatever it was I was sitting on. I don't remember getting up or lying. I just remember sliding off something. I was grabbed really hard on my left arm. It hurt. I was taken out a door that, at the end, across the way from this thing. But like I said, it was a good walk to get to that door. There were, where the wall met the ceiling, there were lights, almost like a fluorescent tube, like a light, a space, a light, a space, a light, all along the wall. I don't know if fiber optics, a tube of light. I have no idea. I was very, very young, but I remember a light, a space, a light, a space. Taken out the door, and then I was taken to the right down this hallway with very tall walls, all white, very narrow. Went to the end. There was no cool curvature to anything. It went left or right. Was taken to the left and then brought into this room off to the right that had a glassed-in wall that almost like a coffee can of glass, right? A big bowed inward, it bowed like that. there was an opening or a doorway to the not a door, but an opening to the left and an opening to the right that went somewhere at the time. I went through one of them later, but at the time I did this or was sitting there, I had no idea where it was, what it brought me to. I was sitting again on a different table that had a pole in it like this. The table would later rise and an aperture would come down over me, cover me, and then a second one came down in these holes all aligned, and these packets were put on my body that looked like large raisins. Black, about the size of a mouse.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, the whole thing's weird, but
But before that took place, I saw something very odd. I don't know if it was alive. It was robotic. It looked like an ant type figure. That's what I had made, which is in Roswell. You've probably seen it.
I've seen that, yes, before.
That
is what you encountered?
Yeah, I saw that. I saw it too, right to my left. It just kind of looked at me for a moment. It didn't look like it was. I still to this day don't know if it was even a living thing. But
as a 10-year-old boy, Tom, that must have scared the living daylights out of you.
This is the other thing. I was going in from like being sharp, at least I think I was sharp, to feel placid and obedient, and then sharp again and scared. I went back and forth, back and forth. At one point, I ran. However I was feeling, whatever was coming over me, came and went pretty quickly. And I ran out this door, and there was a huge area, larger than like a empty Walmart, and it was round. And there were 3 hallways in it. There was a hallway to the right that was about as wide as a single lane road. The one in front of me to the right was also the same, about as wide as a single lane road. And the one to the left was like 2 to 3 times as big. And so it looked like a Y configuration with the wider, fatter part going to my left over an area that was round and empty and white with gray markings on the floor. So I used to look back at that and think, well, maybe, this was to allow the flow of traffic. A lot of people coming in from one way could go around each other. And
right, yeah.
The only thing that made sense. I heard my mother, I think it was my mom. I don't know for sure.
I was just going to ask you if you had any cognition, if you knew where your brother, your mother, your where they were at, or did you have any awareness of that, or where everybody else was?
I did hear names being called. I did hear, I don't really remember everything. I just remember hearing voices. I think it was my mom calling out for me. But at the same time, Melanie Kirchdorfer, who was in Unsolved Mysteries, Birch's UFO episode with me, she used to come into our diner as a kid and get grilled cheese sandwiches with onion. Right. So that's how I knew her. She was older than me, but my mom knew her well. And Jan Green, who was in episode 2, she used to own the Rexall Pharmacy down the road. So they were friends. And as is Eddie, who said, oh, that was my father, whatever, who was the chief of police, who went looking for the UFO. That's something that was very unfair. When they showed the police officer going through the book and saying, I don't see do you know that wasn't even the same town?
Seriously?
No. The town that it happened in was when they spoke to Eddie Galata and said, my father and I went out looking for it. His father was the chief of police. That's the son of the chief of police. But then they brought in an officer from a town where it didn't happen. The Sheffield incident, that officer never worked in Sheffield. That officer they had in Unsolved Mysteries never worked a day in Sheffield. As an officer, anyway.
No. So where they were just using the officer as a character or a prop or something.
He was an officer in a different town, but the Sheffield incident didn't happen in Great Barrington. Anyway,
okay,
it was the weirdest thing. So
that's television.
That's why I'm upset over a couple things. But anyway, they still showed the waterway and how it traveled, and that was great. Anyway, so back to this. So last thing I remember was the raisin packs being put on my body, some bumps to my head, and I came to, if you will, in that area that I was first brought to, the large open area with the lights that went along the wall. And then I came to in the car, but after it had already been driven back to our diner. So at this point, when my grandmother came to, she was now in a driver's seat. So my mother and grandmother were reversed. The ignition was off.
Well, that was nice of them.
Whoever. So we don't know if somebody walking down the path of the road turned it off because there was no one in the car and it was just running. When we were last sitting in it, the lights were on, the car was running, and my mother was in the driver's seat. And when we came to, my grandmother and mom reversed.
Was in the driver's seat.
Yeah, doesn't that appear to be, human error?
Right.
And does an alien know how to turn off the ignition in a Chevy station wagon?
Well, what is your theory on that, Tom?
Well, we for a fact we all know, and so does the Historical Society and a lot of other people that were living there back in the time, that there was government everywhere. They were coming out of the woods.
Yeah.
There were obviously everyone knows it. That's why it was one of the reasons they were able to induct it, because they went in that direction. Now, what we saw was off-world. So the governor was like, I can't deny that something happened here. 250 people saw it. Tom passed his polygraph. It went out on the radio. Judges and historians and everybody else in the area was part of it. I mean, a lot of people saw it. It wasn't just that one day, but that particular day was a holiday. So people were out having barbecues with those that they didn't normally associate with.
Yeah, it's Labor Day.
Yeah. And this was not the first time. If you look at my site, you'll see that we've got an article from 1967 where this happened too. But it was completely different. It wasn't like this at all. It wasn't so barbaric. It wasn't so harsh, And that's the one that really caused the problems in the community, because we were the only ones involved in that one. The 69 one was the one that put the bow around it. That's the one everybody saw. And they go, oh, my God, I'm so sorry. The Reeds were right.
Tom, I guess the question is when you all regained your senses and you realized where you were at, you're back in the car. Grandma's in the driver's seat. Mom's in the passenger seat. The two boys are still in the back. When you all came, kind of gathered your thoughts together again, what did you do at that point? Just drive home?
No. So my grandmother, who didn't really drive much back in the 60s, a lot of women didn't drive. She had a license, but she didn't really drive. And this was a station wagon. So she was the first one to come to, and she was in the driver's seat. She took the car down maybe, 300 or 400 yards, found an area to turn around, went back to town for help. So she went back to Silk's store, which was right next to ours. So you had our diner, the police department, the fire department, and Silk's convenience store was next to it. So she went to Silk's for help. When she got out of the car, I woke up. And I say woke up or came to, however you want to word it. Mm-hmm. I saw her over the steering wheel, walking in front of me, right in front of the car, because it was dark. The headlights were on, but I saw, and Silk's had lights out front. So I saw her get out. I don't know if the door slamming was something that triggered something. I don't know, but I saw her. My mom was passed out in the seat. Her head's to the side. My brother's head is on my leg. And so I just got out and I'm yelling, Nana, Nana, Nana. And she walks up the steps and goes into the store. It had the bell on it back in the day. Yeah. I walked in to follow her, but she went right by the clerk and she kept going straight to the back of the store. She got, I was trying to grab her arm and she was behind some carriages and bicycles and stuff. And I'm grabbing her arm and, I don't know why I was trying to pull her through the thing, but that was a moment that bothers me to this day, because we were so out of it. We didn't really know what to make of what was happening. We weren't thinking clearly. And then the owner of Silk's comes over to ask if she's okay, but she never asked him for help at that point. If she did, the paramedics would have shown up, the police would have shown up. And because WSBS radio was contacted by the police department, because he was a ham radio operator, he heard these people mentioning something in the skies. And so he went back to the radio, which was in Great Barrington, where the officer was. And the only reason Great Barrington is involved in it, because that was the bigger town that had the radio station. It didn't happen there. The radio station was there, which went to Sheffield, because I'm 3 miles away. So he gets on the radio and starts calling out to people in their cars. Hey, listen, this is Tom J. If you've seen anything in the skies, please call the station. Right. So if we had notified, I think it would have been, who knows what would have happened at that point, right? if we had actually said, let's call the police, because they would have referred us to Tom J Station. But anyway, the next day we go to open up the diner. My mom's got a radio over the grill, and sure enough, Tom J's on there. Listen, last night we had a bunch of calls. Then they started playing the pre-recorded calls of all these people, and so those eating in our diner and the kids at the the counter there with me, getting ready to go to school. That's my aunt, that's my brother, that's my sister. That's Melanie Kirchdorfer. That's whatever. And that's how it got so much play, was because at this particular incident was one that everybody almost felt bad for, poking fun at my mom, the fights in school, but then again, so later on, the Historical Society, after my father's passing, thought, well, how do we do something with this? What do we do? Well, it was involved in a space race, the goodwill message that was left on the moon. Those people who worked on it ate here. It went out on the radio, made the news. It made the papers in the 60s. Kevin Titus is a judge, for God's sakes. He remembers it. I took a polygraph test. My dad was a politician. It went to the United Nations, for God's sakes. How can you say it didn't happen?
Let me ask you about this. How did the United Nations, there's a whole story there. Tell me a little bit about some of the awards or whatever, or the certifications or whatever you got to get this whole incident into the United Nations.
Well, the United Nations, that happened long before it ever got inducted into state. The United Nations was 1992. That was when my father was alive. They wanted to mention this case in support of the Hudson River Valley.
Okay, well, I don't mean to cut you off, but let me ask you a question. I've got a picture here that you sent us, Patricia, with all those letters. And now, what is all of this?
Well, there's 2 citations from the governor and the lieutenant governor, sealed by a circuit court judge. In other words, that signature in the middle of that seal, that's like a notary. That's because those documents went through a court system. So even if the governor or the lieutenant governor wanted to rescind it, they couldn't, because it was sealed by a circuit court judge. And also, by the way, a law firm was involved in authenticating these letters and working with the Roswell Museum's Research Center. Her name was the attorney at was the Kessler Law Firm, and that was actually written up in the Roswell Daily Record twice because they take a little bit of pride in this, I think, because they were part of getting this inducted. On the right, that letter is actually, I've got a better copy of it right here if you want to take that down for a second. This is the one that, you're showing. That's kind of hard to read.
Okay, so that's from the Historical Society.
Yeah, and it talks about how it went to the UN and all those documents about it going to the United Nations and everything had to be authenticated and go through a court system and make sure that they were legal documents, and it had to go through a law firm. This is why I'm saying this case has a lot of documentation.
This is possibly one of the most documented cases.
Possibly it is.
Yeah, possibly it is.
By far. There's the Charles D. Baker,
right?
The lieutenant, and again the judge, and then how the governor basically just rubber stamped the decision by the state to induct this in the first place. And so again, if you're just to put this out there, a lot of things came up in that conversation. Would this hold up in court? And they're like, well, there was medical doctors, were involved, polygraph tests, 250 witnesses, judges, everybody kind of saw this thing. The incident went out on the radio. I mean, it would definitely hold up in court. And then there was this, well, how do we do something with it? How do we get this inducted into state without looking foolish? We can't say gray aliens visited Stockbridge. The governor's never going to seal that one, right? So we can't use the word abduction. We can't use the word contactee. We got to be very careful here. Hey, Tom, if we move forward on this, would you promise not to use certain verbiage? You can tell people what happened, but my God, if you say this or you say that, we'll rip it right out of state. That's kind of what happened. So I said, yeah, well, how can I help this community if the best way to help this community is just by saying, look, here's the documentation. You decide for yourself. I'm not going to label it. So as long as I stick to the verbiage on here,
right? Okay.
The verbiage on here, I have no problems. But if I vary from that, I risk having them. I really don't think they can, because now it's been sealed. It has to go through a court system, but there is that risk of having it, having somebody get rubbed the wrong way. So I just look. This is what happened. It's up to you to decide. Was there a government presence? Absolutely, and everybody in New England knows it. I mean, you had the NORAD towers were in Dalton, which is a half hour away. Nike missile sites, Minuteman missile sites. We had one of the higher elevations outside of New York. I mean, it's a high area. We lived on Sheffield's on a very high. You could look down from our driveway of our house and see, the Appalachians and
Right. Yeah.
And so there's an awful lot going on there, so how they voted on this was I was called in 2014 or 15 to say that they were going to be voting on whether or not it was going to go to a census for the state of Massachusetts or Commonwealth, and the question was, like Billy the Kid. This is what she said to me on the phone. Just like Billy the Kid, if you alter the railroad, you change history, right?
Absolutely.
If Billy the Kid only altered 10 feet of track, it wouldn't have mattered. But he altered the entire railroad. Did the Reed's incident alter the natural progression of the community? If it did, it was historically true.
Well, it absolutely did, didn't it?
That's
Okay, we're down to about 8 minutes here, but you are working on a book.
Yeah.
And that book is this whole incident. Am I right?
Yeah, it's going to be from how my grandmother was the governess for Franklin Delano Roosevelt's grandchildren, and what encouraged my father to get into politics, and how he got up before the United Nations, and how it was part of the space race, and pretty much everything we discussed.
And when do you think this book is going to hit the general public?
Well, it should have been done by now. It's like 50-something years in the making, right? I've got about, it's going to be written into 3 different parts. What happened in the 60s, what happened in the 80s, and how it, how it got inducted. So it's going to be 3 small books. So I would say that one of them is basically done. We're halfway through the second. And, but it never seems to end, right? Because we're trying to figure out how to end it. But, we were going to end it with the monument, and then we were going to end it with a donation from Ancient Aliens, and we're going to end it, with blah, 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 blah. And now are we going to end it with having UFO Expo and Roswell? I mean, how do we really end this? Because I want to put a really nice feel to the end of it, because it did make history. And basically the book is about how a bunch of kids who used to eat together in a diner were all part of this, picked on in the school, drew these things and taped them to the chalkboard in school, talked about this, were cast out by other people, but together they never wavered, and together they made United States history. That's what this is about.
Yeah, this incident, for all my listeners, this incident is huge. Most of the folks that are listening to this on KGRA are going to already know you, Thom, or know about you.
Sure.
For those who do not, this is one of the biggest incidents in the country. So moving on a little bit, and we're, this is always the quickest hour of the week. You've been on a lot of television shows, and the reason is because of this. There they are. Paranormal Declassified, 1969, 2021. Unsolved Mysteries, 2020. Ancient Aliens, 2018. Bad Boys 2. You're going to have to tell me about that one, Thom.
Oh, no, I worked on Bad Boys 2. I was a talent agent for years, and I worked on Inner Shoe with Cameron Diaz, Too Fast, Too Furious. I worked on the Serena Williams tennis commercial. I had the 5-year packaging campaign for Love's Diapers, Reebok, Nike, Polo, you name it. I mean, I was a manager for I worked on several different, I worked for Paul Mitchell, shampoo. But that was more like a side business for me. I was basically in the technical field. I went to AI prints and that kind of thing. And it was, had a different career for the most part. So my hobby became my my job for a while.
But you
And
also have your own business. You still have something going on down in Miami?
no, not anymore. No. Now, I used to hold our Ocean Drive runway shows, and so people would say to me after my father lost his life on that same date, why don't you use your contacts and influence to see if you can bring some attention to your late father? That's how this whole thing started. That was really driven by my brother, because my brother wants to do something with this, but he doesn't. He's got a career to think about, and he's also worried about the continued mockery and things affecting his job. I don't think it matters so much now, but in the past he did. That's why I kind of ran with it. I took the torch and ran. But he did do once. He did do a show with Discovery Channel. And has spoken up, as has my mother. By the way, my mother was on Unsolved Mysteries. I never thought she would do it, but she's at an age now where she's very religious. She was like, oh, I don't know how my friends at church are going to feel about it, but she finally did it. And I'm glad she did.
Is there, after all these years, Thom, is there any mockery? I mean, do you regret anything about coming forward and coming out about this?
No, I don't. I never have.
Okay,
I've.
Of course, times have changed.
Yeah, well, I also had a near-death experience back in 2005. I was hit by a tractor-trailer truck, and
seriously, I'll have to have you back. We can talk about that because I love that topic.
Yeah.
We're just down to a few minutes. Let's talk about Roswell and the UFO Expo.
Okay, just to finish that though. Ever since that accident, my whole opinion of the little things. I don't care what people think. You know what I mean? I'm just glad to be here, and I am who I am, kind of thing.
I hear you.
Right.
That's perfect too.
Mm-hmm.
By the way.
Okay, so yeah, UFO Expo. Yeah. So
let's talk a little bit about UFO Expo.
So I got a call from the city of Roswell that they wanted to kind of rekindle Main Street Roswell. The shops downtown and things that have kind of not. It's had the festival hasn't quite been what it was, because of all the. It's been moved to up the road a little bit and so on and so forth. So Roswell, is deserving of more than one festival a year. Let's see if we can't do something different. Add some flavor to it, expand.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, do something different. And so I moved it. I moved my event to Roswell, and I've teamed up with Main Street Roswell, the Roswell Daily Record, and Galacticon. So there's like 3 or 4 of us that have kind of like joined forces to bring some life back into the community because let's face it, every year 4th of July, it's a lot of the same speakers, it's a lot of the same thing. So we're bringing in a film fest, a little bit of cosplay. We're bringing in tracks instead of speakers that are going to stand behind a podium. We're going to be sitting side by side in chairs and having drinks together and just passing the mic around and asking attendees, letting them ask questions to those people on stage, and then of course zooming people in and showing clips from TV shows and things. And that happened and that didn't happen, that kind of thing. So
it's like having a big round table discussion or something.
It's going to be more lighthearted. It's going to be more of a mixer. We have music. I just booked another band today, so we have someone who's going to play outside. We're going to be taking movies, a film fest type of thing, a small film fest, and we're going to be showing them on. I think it's an old milk truck. So we're going to be this milk truck is going to be in the parking lot, and the convention center is going to show the film on the side of the truck where we're having drinks. So basically we'll be like having drinks under this overhang with, food and nachos, whatever, and watching movies on the sides of antique vehicles in the parking lot.
And how many different speakers are you having down there this year?
Oh my God, probably, all in all, I'm going to say probably 20. I think some are virtual, some are in person. I think we've got, maybe 10 or so in person, and then maybe, 10 or 15 that are virtual. So those virtual speakers are part of those tracks. So Daryl Sims is hosting the abduction track with Kim Carlsberg.
Okay.
Then we're having other people that are going to be zooming in to that track. So Kim Carlsberg and Daryl will be sitting on the stage, and Matt Moniz, I think, is going to have the mic, and he's going to go around and speak to the audience, and they're going to be talking back and forth. And then when they key on something, they're going to show a clip, and they're going to talk about that, and then they're going to zoom.
I think we lost Thom for a minute.
They're going to you're all fuzzy all of a sudden.
Yeah, something's going on here. We keep locking up and going in and out, but
All right. But anyway, it's gonna be multifaceted. We're gonna have multiple people talking about the same thing over a few minutes time, and then zoom in someone else and show something else. So it's gonna be moving quickly, but it's gonna be completely interactive. And we're trying something totally different. Yeah.
We have a clip. Do we
Uh-huh.
have a trailer or something for this?
Yeah.
Sort of an ad? Let's run that.
Okay.
Ever seen UFO Expo 2023, March 10th through the 12th at the Roswell Convention Center. 3 days packed with 40 different events, including 10 different film screens, producers, celebrity personalities, and renowned speakers, and all just a few blocks from the UFO Museum and Research Center. The 3-day pass includes VIP parties, mixer tents, speakers, live music, film festival, cosplay events, and more. Get tickets and more info at ufoxpo.com. UFO Expo 2023, March 10th through the 12th at the Roswell Convention Center.
Well, there you go.
Well, that's
There's the time. There's the place.
Yeah.
I know we're going to be there personally, so we'll see you down there.
And Bill from KGRA.
Bill here at KGR.
M. Dust of UFO Man. By the way, my co-host on my show. We need to get you on UFO Man. So that'll be kind of cool. We do. It'll be kind of cool. So maybe we'll interview you while you're there.
I'd be more than happy to, Tom.
Okay.
So we're out of time.
Yeah.
Tom, I want to thank you so much for coming on. And let's get together again. Let's have you back
Okay.
on the program, and let's talk a little bit more about this near-death experience that you had. Are you willing to talk about that on the show?
Yeah, sure. Also, for those that don't know, do you remember the book and movie Death in Canaan, the murder of Peter Riley? It was called, oh my God, it was Peter Riley's Death in Canaan. Brian Dennehy was in it. And after all this happened, that house, that apple orchard, the cottage and everything went up for sale. And my father bought it, and I lived there. And it was the creepiest place I've ever lived in my life.
Ooh, I want to hear about that.
Yeah.
We're completely out of time. So, Tom,
yeah.
I want to thank you so much for coming on our show.
Absolutely.
And so, on behalf of Tom, my program manager, Patricia Wilkinson, the lady in the behind the scenes, popping up the pictures and doing some research for us, and myself, Jim Mann, I want to thank you for joining us here on Dark Window, and join us again next week. Good night.
Thanks for having me, man. Good night. Bye. Bye.